My wife said she was going on a road trip to the beach with her best friend, and she specifically told me not to contact her. Before she left, she put on a brand new dress, sprayed a flirty perfume, and adjusted the passenger seat all the way back. In the middle of the night, the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. I dialed her best friend's husband's number. "Is Harper home?" He answered sleepily. "Yeah, she just finished showering." I clenched my phone, got into my car, and drove straight to his house. "Open the door. I'm outside." Her best friend's husband opened the door, and there was Harper, standing in the living room in her pajamas, completely panicking. The next moment, I opened the car app on my phone and remotely locked my wife's car. Chloe said she was going on a 3-day road trip to the beach with her best friend, Harper. She specifically told me not to contact her. "The reception where we're going is terrible," she said. "And I just really want to completely unplug and relax." I nodded. "Okay." The day before she left, she dragged me around the mall all day. She bought a new white sundress. She also bought a new bottle of perfume. It wasn't her usual light, floral scent. This one was rich, musky, and incredibly sexy. She said, "Harper loves this scent." On the morning of her departure, she got up very early. She spent 2 hours doing her makeup. Her eyeliner was sharp, and she wore a bold, classic red lipstick. "What's it here? It's just a trip to the beach. Do you really need to go all out like this?" She laughed. "You don't understand girls, Adam. We need to take lots of cute pictures for Instagram." She loaded her suitcase into the trunk. Then she got into the driver's seat, but immediately got back out. She opened the passenger door and started adjusting the seat. She pushed the passenger seat all the way back, creating the maximum amount of legroom. I frowned. "Why are you making the passenger seat so spacious?" Chloe didn't even look back. "Harper gained some weight recently. I'm afraid she won't be comfortable otherwise." I didn't say anything else. I helped her close the trunk. She leaned out of the car window and blew me a kiss. "Bye, Adam. Be a good boy at home." The car sped away, kicking up dust. I went back inside our empty house. The heavy, suffocating scent of her perfume still lingered in the air. I walked out onto the balcony and lit a cigarette. Harper gained weight. We had just had dinner together last week. She was even thinner than Chloe. My heart began to sink, inch by inch. In the middle of the night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning. Chloe's Snapchat profile background was still our wedding photo. In the photo, her smile was so sweet. But my mind was entirely consumed by that passenger seat pushed all the way back. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Harper's husband, Mike. "Hey, it's so late, what's up?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice as steady as possible. "Mike, is Harper home?" There was a second of silence on the other end. Then came Mike's confused voice. "Yeah, she's home. She just finished her shower, she's blow-drying her hair right now." I felt the blood in my veins completely freeze. "Sorry, dialed the wrong number." I hung up. The room was deathly quiet. Outside the window, the city lights were cold and piercing. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. But as I laughed, tears started rolling down my face. What a brilliant road trip. What a wonderful best friend. I sat up abruptly. Rage surged through every fiber of my being. I couldn't just let this go. I needed proof. I needed answers. I needed to shatter this meticulously crafted lie into pieces. I rushed downstairs. I started my car. I slammed on the gas, and the car shot out like an arrow. The cold night wind rushed through the open window, stinging my face. But my heart was much colder than the wind. 20 minutes later, I parked my car outside Mike's apartment building. It was a very familiar neighborhood. Chloe and I had been here countless times. I pulled out my phone again and called Mike. "Open the door. I'm outside your apartment." On the other end of the line, Mike was baffled. "What? Are you kidding me?" "I'm not kidding. Open the door." I heard footsteps through the phone, and then Harper's faint, startled gasp. A few seconds later, the door opened. Mike stood there in his sweatpants, looking at me with utter confusion. "Adam." I pushed past him and walked inside. The living room lights were bright. Behind him stood Harper in her pink silk pajamas. Her hair was wet, and she was still holding her hairdryer. When she saw me, her face completely lost all color. Harper's eyes looked like those of a cornered animal. The hairdryer slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. "Adam, what? Why are you here?" Her voice was trembling, barely audible. Mike finally snapped out of his daze. He walked over and patted my shoulder. "Adam, what the hell is going on? Did you and Chloe get into a fight?" He knew nothing. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a wave of pity and a bit of envy. My gaze shifted back to Harper. "Aren't you supposed to be on a road trip at the beach with Chloe? Why are you at home?" Harper's face turned as white as a sheet of paper. "Oh, about that. We canceled it at the last minute." "Yeah, we canceled it." Mike looked even more confused now. "Canceled? What are you guys talking about?" He looked at me, then at his panicked wife. I laughed. It was a cold, bitter laugh. I didn't look at her again. Under their bewildered stares, I pulled out my phone. I opened my car's tracking app. It clearly showed the real-time location of Chloe's white BMW, a blinking red that was parked at a resort hotel over 80 miles away from the city. My finger swiped gently across the screen. An option popped up. Remote lock and disable engine. A small text notification flashed. Vehicle locked. Engine immobilized. Right at that moment, my phone started ringing like crazy. It was Chloe. I answered it and put it on speaker. Her panicked, crying voice erupted from the speaker. Adam, where are you? My car. I don't know what happened, but it suddenly locked itself and won't start. I'm trapped at a highway rest stop. It's so dark, and I'm so scared. Please come rescue me. I held the phone, staring at the pale-faced Harper in front of me, and said slowly, I am at your best friend's house. And her husband is right here with me. The other end of the line went instantly dead silent. I could easily picture Chloe's face at this exact moment. A few seconds later, her hysterical voice exploded from the speaker. Why are you at Harper's house? What the hell are you doing at her place in the middle of the night? Are you out of your mind? Je lit out a cold sneer. Am I out of my mind? Chloe, I should be the one asking that question. Aren't you supposed to be with Harper? Why are you alone at a rest stop? In the living room, Harper stumbled back. She almost collapsed to the floor. Mike caught her. He finally sensed that something was terribly wrong. His brows furrowed deeply. Adam, what the hell is actually going on? I turned my phone screen toward him. She's right here. I pointed at the location on the screen. A place called the Aegean Resort. 80 miles away from here. Mike's expression changed instantly. He stared at his wife in disbelief. Harper avoided his eyes, not daring to look at him or me. She was still trying to make a desperate excuse. That's a misunderstanding. Chloe's, her GPS must be broken. GPS is broken? My smile grew colder. Then is my car's GPS broken too? On the other end of the line, Chloe heard everything. What do you want? I'm just at a rest stop. My car broke down. I'm alone and terrified. Unlock my car right now. Sure. Tell me the name of the rest stop you're at. I'll drive over right now. And I'll bring your best friend and her husband with me. We can all pick you up together. As soon as those words left my mouth, Chloe completely broke down on the phone. Don't you dare. If you bring them here, we are done. We were done a long time ago, I replied flatly. The very moment you pushed that passenger seat all the way back. With that, I hung up. I put my phone in my pocket and looked at the terrified Mike and Harper. Mike's lips trembled. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know where to start. This honest, hard-working man was watching his entire world crumble before his eyes. And Harper was clutching his arm tightly. Adam, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's really not. I had no interest in her explanations. I had already achieved my goal. I looked at Mike. Now I have two options. First, I drive to that resort alone. Second, we go together. I suggest the second option, I added. Because my car is equipped with a 360-degree dashcam, high-definition night vision, interior and exterior, with audio recording. I'm worried the footage might be too wild for me to enjoy alone. Mike's body shuddered. He wasn't stupid. He understood. He took a deep breath, as if making a final decision. Slowly, he pried Harper's fingers off his arm. His voice was terrifyingly raspy. Get dressed, he told Harper. We are going together. Harper's eyes were filled with pure despair. She started crying and begging. Adam, please don't do this, I beg you. It's all a misunderstanding. Believe me. If you go, our marriage is over. Go change your clothes. Now. Mike's voice suddenly boomed, filled with an authority I had never heard from him before. In all the years I had known him, this was the first time I had ever seen him angry. Harper was stunned into silence. Her cries choked back in her throat. Looking at her husband's icy glare, she knew there was no turning back. Like a lost soul, she stumbled into the bedroom. I watched all of this quietly. There was no joy in my heart. Only a barren, freezing emptiness. The destruction of a marriage was playing out right in front of me. And I was the one who had handed over the sledgehammer. A few minutes later, Harper walked out in regular clothes. Her face was stained with tears, and her hair was a mess. Mike grabbed his car keys and looked at me. Let's go. The highway was an empty ribbon of black asphalt cutting through 80 miles of pine forest and fog. Mike drove his SUV. I sat in the front passenger seat, staring straight ahead, into the high beams. Harper sat in the back, huddled against the cold window, like a condemned prisoner waiting for the executioner's cart to stop. Every 10 seconds, the screen of Harper's phone would light up in her lap. Chloe was blowing it up. Texts, missed FaceTime requests, voice memos. Without taking his eyes off the road, Mike reached his right hand back between the front seats. Give it to me, he said. His voice sounded like two dry stones scraping together. Mike, please. Harper sobbed, her voice trembling. It's my phone. Give me the fucking phone, Harper. She whimpered and placed the iPhone into his open palm. Mike didn't look down. He pressed the side button, flipped the mute switch, and tossed the device into the cup holder next to my elbow. I looked at the notifications lighting up the screen in the dark cabin. Chloe. Harper, answer me right now. Chloe. Did you tell him? What did you say? Chloe. Tell Adam I was just meeting a client. Tell him it was a surprise. Chloe. Harper, please don't ruin this for me. A surprise? I muttered under my breath. A ghost of a chuckle escaped my chest, hollow and jagged. I tapped the screen of my own phone. The companion app for my car was still running in the foreground. The vehicle was an upscale sports sedan Chloe had begged me to buy her for our 3rd anniversary. It came equipped with an enterprise-grade telematics system that I, working in systems architecture, had personally configured with high-bandwidth cloud sync and remote diagnostic overrides. On my screen, the car's status showed in cold, unambiguous metrics. Engine disabled via remote command. Doors deadlocked. Location Aegean Resort and Spa, VIP Bungalow 7 parking pad. Interior temperature 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Cabin dashcam active, cloud streaming ready. You said you have camera footage? Mike asked. His knuckles were bone white against the leather wrap of the steering wheel. Front, rear, and interior cabin, I replied quietly. The wide-angle lens on. The rear-view mirror records in 4K. Audio feeds from 3 isolated directional microphones. Harper let out a soft, strangled cry from the back seat. Adam, don't do this to him. Don't do this to yourself. Turn around. Let's just go home. Chloe made a mistake. She's confused, but... Shut up, Harper. I said, not even turning my head. You packed her bags. You lent her your alibi. You sat in your living room in your pajamas while your husband thought you were safe in your bed, playing shield for a whore. You don't get to speak about who makes mistakes. I had to. Harper shrieked, defensive panic finally breaking through her tears. She's my friend. What was I supposed to do? Tell on her. You were supposed to be an adult, Mike said. His voice wasn't loud, but the sheer leaden weight of it sucked all the air out of the vehicle. You were supposed to have a shred of human decency. We've been married 5 years. Harper. Adam and Chloe stood beside us at our wedding. And you treated our home like a brothel's waiting room. Harper went completely quiet. Only the sound of her ragged, shallow hyperventilation remained. I tapped the cloud recording icon on my screen. Do you want to see who's with her before we arrive? I asked Mike. Or do you want to keep the mystery alive for another 40 minutes? Mike didn't flinch. Play it. I clicked on the latest file stamp. Today for 15 p.m. The video buffer spun for half a second, then resolved into razor-sharp color. The interior of Chloe's car appeared on the screen. The afternoon sun was streaming through the windshield. Chloe was behind the wheel, humming a tune I had never heard before. She was checking her lipstick in the rearview mirror, blotting her lips with a tissue, adjusting the low neckline of that white sundress. Then the car came to a stop at a commuter park-and-ride lot on the edge of the city. The passenger door opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man climbed inside. He wore a tailored linen shirt and expensive sunglasses. He didn't hesitate. The moment he sat down, his large hand went directly onto Chloe's bare thigh, his fingers digging into the hem of her white dress. Miss me. His voice came through the car speakers via Bluetooth, rich and arrogantly relaxed. Chloe leaned across the console and wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her mouth to his in a deep, wet kiss that lasted nearly 10 seconds. When she pulled back, she left a bright smudge of red lipstick across his jaw. You have no idea how hard it was to get out of the house, Chloe purred, her voice dripping with an intimacy she hadn't offered me in 3 years. Adam was hovering like a pathetic puppy, asking about my dress, asking about Harper. The man laughed, reaching into his pocket to pull out a handkerchief to wipe his chin. Did the little clerk buy the story? Of course he did, Chloe sneered, shifting the car into drive. He believes anything I tell him. He's too boring to imagine anyone having an actual life. The man in the video laughed again, sliding the passenger seat back with an audible clunk clunk clunk, stretching his long legs into the vast footwell Chloe had prepared for him that morning. In the SUV, Mike suddenly hit the brakes, pulling the car onto the shoulder with a screech of rubber. He didn't look at me. He stared at the glowing phone in my hand, his face draining of every drop of color, until he looked like a corpse. Julian, Mike whispered. The word hung in the cold night air like poison. Julian Vance, Mike's regional director at the commercial real estate firm where they both worked. The man who had approved Mike's promotion 6 months ago. The man who had been a guest at Mike and Harper's barbecue last summer. I turned around slowly to look at Harper in the back seat. Harper had her hands clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. You didn't just cover for Chloe, I said, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. You set them up. No, I didn't set them up. Harper screamed, shrinking back against the seat cushions as Mike slowly turned his head to look at her. Mike's eyes were bloodshot, the veins in his neck pulsing visibly under his skin. Julian told me 3 weeks ago that he had a VIP client visiting this weekend, he said, his voice deadly calm. He told me I had to cover his regional accounts from Friday through Sunday so he could close a multi-million-dollar land deal. Mike's hands began to shake violently. He took my weekend. He gave me 12 hours of unpaid administrative grunt work so he could take Adam's wife to the coast. Mike leaned over the center console, staring down his wife. And you knew the whole time. She was going to leave Adam anyway. Harper cried, tears streaming down her neck, soaking the collar of her jacket. She told me Julian was going to buy her a condo in the Marina District. She said it was already decided that Julian had connections to get Mike a vice presidency once they went public. She said it would help us, Mike. She said it would help our family. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the car. Mike didn't yell. He didn't hit anything. He simply stared at the woman he had loved for 7 years as if she were a pile of decaying rubbish left out on the curb. Help our family, Mike whispered. He let out a short, dry breath that sounded like tearing paper. You pimped out our best friend's marriage for a corporate promotion. I didn't. It wasn't like that. Shut your mouth, Mike said. He shifted the SUV back into drive and slammed the accelerator down. The tires spun on the gravel shoulder before gripping the tarmac, rocketing us back into the dark highway at 90 miles an hour. I looked back down at my phone. The dashcam live feed was dark now. The car was parked, the engine dead. But the telematics logs told the rest of the afternoon's story. They had arrived at the Aegean Resort at 6:40 p.m. They had ordered room service at 7:15 p.m. At 11:30 p.m., Chloe had walked out to the vehicle, likely to retrieve something from her luggage or perhaps to take a discreet phone call, and had unlocked the door. That was when I had triggered the remote lockout from my app. The security system had deployed the deadbolts. The immobilizer had severed the ignition relay. The anti-tamper protocol had locked the steering column and disabled the manual override latch from inside the cabin. She wasn't trapped at a dark highway rest stop. She was locked out in the parking lot of Bungalow 7, in her silk robe with no way to start the vehicle, no way to drive away, and her luxury weekend stripped of its glossy facade. How far? Mike asked. 12 miles, I said. Take the next coastal cutoff. I felt remarkably steady. The volcanic rage that had gripped me in my living room had burned away, leaving behind a cold, structural clarity. When a building's foundation is rotten, you don't weep over the wallpaper. You calculate the trajectory of the controlled demolition. You make sure the debris falls cleanly, crushing only what deserves to be buried. I pulled up my personal banking app. Chloe and I maintained a primary joint checking account where our paychecks were deposited, but the investment portfolios and the deed to our home were held in a revocable living trust one had established before our marriage, tied to my family's premarital assets. Chloe was an interior design consultant. She earned money, but she spent triple what she brought in on designer bags, overseas spa weekends, and cosmetic treatments. Every luxury she enjoyed, the BMW, the platinum cards, the country club membership, was funded by the software licensing firm I had co-founded 5 years ago. I opened the banking portal. I transferred our liquid operational funds, $78,000, out of the joint checking account and into my private holding account. I left exactly $342 in the joint balance. Then, I opened the primary credit card console and reduced the limit on Chloe's authorized user cards to $1. What are you doing? Mike asked, noticing the soft blue glow illuminating my face. Canceling her subscription to my life, I said. The Aegean Resort and Spa sat perched on a rocky cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was the kind of secluded, 5-star enclave where discretion was priced into the room rate. Towering cypress trees flanked the cobblestone driveway, their branches swaying in the heavy marine layer that rolled in from the sea. Mike swept past the main entrance gate without slowing down. The gate arm was up for late arrivals, and the private lane curved around a manicured golf course toward the detached VIP bungalows. Bungalow 7 was tucked away at the very end of a dead-end cul-de-sac, surrounded by dense bamboo hedges that guaranteed complete privacy, or at least the illusion of it. Sitting in the private driveway of Bungalow 7 was my white BMW. Its hazard lights were flashing steadily in the mist, casting rhythmic amber pulses across the front porch of the modern villa. Next to the BMW was a sleek, dark gray Porsche Taycan, Julian Vance's car. As Mike's SUV rolled to a stop directly behind both vehicles, blocking the driveway entirely, Our headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating two figures standing beside the BMW. Chloe was wrapped in a plush white resort bathrobe, shivering violently against the damp coastal wind. Her hair, carefully styled that morning, was tangled and damp from the fog. Her bold red lipstick was half smeared across her cheek. Standing next to her was Julian Vance. He wore a cashmere sweater and dark jeans, holding a metal tire iron he had clearly pulled from his Porsche's trunk, fruitlessly attempting to pry open the driver's side door frame of my locked car. When the high beams hit them, Julian threw up an arm to shield his eyes. Chloe gasped, taking a stumbling step backward. Mike cut the engine. The silence that followed was terrifying. Stay in the car, Mike told Harper through clenched teeth. Mike, please don't hurt him, Harper sobbed. If you get out of this car, Mike said without looking back, I will call your father before sunrise and explain to him exactly why his daughter is being served with divorce papers tomorrow morning. Harper froze, her mouth open, choking on her own breath. Mike opened his door and stepped out into the cold ocean air. I unbuckled my seatbelt, grabbed my phone, and followed him. The heavy thud of our car doors closing echoed across the empty courtyard. Chloe lowered her hands. As her eyes adjusted to the glare of our headlights, she saw me. Then she saw Mike. The color did not merely leave her face. It looked as if her soul had been ripped straight out of her chest. Her jaw slackened, her knees buckled slightly, and she had to reach out to grab the BMW's side mirror to keep from falling. Adam, she whispered. The sound barely carried over the crash of the waves. Below the cliff, Julian Vance lowered the tire iron. For a split second, a look of primal, predatory guilt flashed across his handsome features, quickly replaced by the practiced, smooth mask of an executive caught in a minor inconvenience. Mike, Julian said, clearing his throat, taking a half step forward and attempting an easy, dismissive smile. What a bizarre coincidence. What are you doing here? Mike didn't say a single word. He walked with a heavy, deliberate stride, straight toward Julian. Julian's smile faltered. Look, Mike, let's not be hasty. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for this. Chloe was having automotive issues on her way down the coast, and she called me because... Crack. The sound of Mike's fist colliding with Julian's jaw was loud and wet. Julian's head snapped violently to the left. The tire iron clattered onto the cobblestones as he stumbled backward, crashing against the hood of his Porsche, before sliding down onto the wet gravel, clutching his bleeding face. Chloe screamed, a shrill, piercing shriek that shattered the quiet night. Mike, stop it. Are you crazy? She screamed, lunging forward to protect Julian. I stepped into her path. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes wide, staring at me as if I were a ghost risen from a grave. Adam. Baby, listen to me, she stammered, her voice frantic, her hands reaching out toward my coat. It's not what it looks like. I swear to God, it's not what it looks like. I looked down at her hands. The nails were painted a fresh, shimmering pearl. On her left ring finger was the 3-carat diamond ring I had spent 6 months searching for in Antwerp. You smell like him, I said. My voice was flat. No anger. No tears. Just a cold, clinical observation. The rich, musky perfume she had bought yesterday was mixed with the scent of Julian's expensive aftershave and the faint smell of vintage wine. Chloe froze. Her hands hovered in the air between us, trembling. Adam, please. She began to weep, tears cutting black trails of mascara through the white foundation on her cheeks. He tricked me. Julian manipulated me. He threatened Mike's job if I didn't meet him. I was doing it for Harper. I was trying to protect Harper and Mike. From the SUV behind us, the driver's side door swung open. Harper stepped out into the headlights, her face twisted with a mixture of agony and pure hatred. You lying bitch, Harper screamed from across the driveway. You told me you loved him. You told me Adam was a pathetic loser who couldn't satisfy you. You begged me to cover for you so you could get your hands on Julian's condo. Chloe's head whipped toward Harper. The mask of the helpless victim vanished, instantly replaced by a snarling, feral rage. You kept your mouth shut until you got caught, Harper. Chloe shrieked back, her voice turning ugly and guttural. You took the designer shoes Julian bought you last month. You ate at his country club on his tab. Don't you dare play the saint now, you miserable hypocrite. Mike stood over Julian, his chest heaving, his knuckles bleeding. He didn't hit Julian again. He didn't need to. Julian was on his hands and knees on the cobblestones, spitting blood and saliva onto the pristine gravel, looking between the two screaming women with the pathetic, hollow terror of a coward whose private empire had just turned into a slaughterhouse. I turned away from the spectacle and walked over to the passenger side of my BMW. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and unlocked the vehicle. The amber hazard lights went dark. The interior dome lights turned on with a soft, clean white glow. I reached inside, unlatched the high-definition dashcam from its magnetic dock. Beneath the rearview mirror, slipped the high-capacity SD card into my pocket, and closed the door. Chloe saw me take the memory card. The realization hit her like a bucket of ice water. All the screaming, all the excuses, all the frantic finger-pointing died in her throat. Adam, give that to me, she whispered, her voice dropping into a desperate, pleading whimper. She scrambled over the gravel toward me, completely ignoring Julian, who was struggling to stand up behind her. Please, Adam. Don't look at it. Please don't show anyone. I'll do anything. I will sign whatever you want. Just please don't destroy my life. Your life? I asked, looking down at her. We can fix this, she sobbed, dropping to her knees on the wet stones, grabbing the hem of my trousers with both hands. People go to therapy. Couples survive. We've been together for 6 years, Adam. You loved me. You promised in front of God and our families that you would stand by me through better or worse. I looked down at this woman I had shared a bed with for over half a decade. 6 years. I remembered holding her hand in the hospital when she had her appendix removed. I remembered staying up until 4 a.m. for 3 weeks straight helping her build the portfolio for her design business. I remembered the soft, warm Sunday mornings when she would rest her head on my chest and tell me I was the safest place in the world for her. None of that was real. The woman who had said those things was an avatar, a carefully constructed costume designed to extract comfort, security, and wealth from a man she secretly despised for being decent. You broke the contract the moment you let him touch you in the car I paid for, I said softly. Julian was on his feet now, leaning heavily against the fender of his Taycan, wiping his split lip with the back of his hand. He looked at me with a desperate, calculating gaze. Adam, Julian spoke up, his voice slurred by a swollen lip. Let's be businessmen about this. Whatever you want, money, a settlement, silence. We can handle this quietly. If this gets back to the board of directors at the firm, it hurts Mike, it hurts everyone. Julian, I interrupted, turning to face him. Julian blinked. Yeah, I don't work for you, I said. Mike doesn't work for you anymore either. And as for your board of directors, my venture group holds an 11% equity stake in your parent firm's mezzanine debt. Julian's face froze. The blood drained from his features far more completely than when Mike had struck him. You what? Julian choked out. Did you really think I didn't know who was funding your regional expansion last quarter? I said calmly. My partner and I reviewed your debt covenants in January. There's a morality and executive conduct clause in your partnership agreement, Julian. Section 14, paragraph B. Any personal misconduct that exposes the partnership to reputational damage or corporate asset commingling triggers an immediate freeze on executive equity vesting. I pointed toward the open door of Bungalow 7. Did you pay for this $3,000 a night villa with your personal card, Julian? Or did you expense it under the corporate client entertainment account you told Mike you were using for the weekend? Julian's mouth opened and closed. Not a single sound came out. He had built his entire identity on the illusion of aristocratic invulnerability. In less than 2 minutes, the architecture of his life had been reduced to a pile of actionable liabilities. By 9 a.m. on Monday, I continued, my attorneys will deliver a formal subpoena to your managing partners, accompanied by the video files, hotel folio, records, and telematics data proving corporate fraud. You won't just lose your job, Julian. You will spend the next 3 years defending yourself against shareholder litigation. Julian collapsed back against his car, staring at the ground as if the earth were opening up to swallow him whole. Chloe looked from Julian to me, realizing in one horrifying instant that her wealthy, powerful savior was nothing more than an empty suit about to be crushed beneath the wheels of corporate law. Adam, Chloe begged, crawling on her knees across the stones, reaching for my shoes. Don't leave me here with him. Take me home. Please take me home. I took 2 steps back, letting her hands fall empty onto the wet gravel. You have the BMW, I said. It's locked. It won't start, she cried. I unlocked the doors, I replied. The engine immobilizer is off. But the credit card you used for the gas tank is canceled. The joint account has $300 in it. You have enough fuel to drive back to the city, pack 3 bags of your personal clothes from my house, and leave my keys on the kitchen counter. Your house, she shrieked, panic turning into hysteria. It's our house. The deed is held by the Vance Freeport Trust, created in 2018, I said coldly. You signed a quitclaim deed during our 2nd year of marriage when we refinanced the property through my private holding corporation. You have no equity. You have no claim. You are a guest whose invitation has been permanently revoked. I turned my back on her. Mike, I called out. Let's go. Mike didn't look at Julian. He didn't look at Chloe. He walked back to his SUV, his boots crunching heavily on the gravel, opened the driver's door and got in. Harper was sitting in the front passenger seat now, trembling, her face buried in her hands. When Mike saw her sitting there, he stopped. "Get in the back," Mike said. Harper didn't argue. She scrambled into the rear seat like a terrified animal. I climbed into the front passenger seat, closed the door and clicked my seatbelt into place. Mike shifted the vehicle into reverse, backed out of the driveway, and swung the SUV around. As our high beams swept across the courtyard for the final time, they illuminated a scene of complete, unmitigated ruin. Julian Vance, sitting on the cold stones beside his sports car, holding his bloody face in total silence. Chloe, kneeling in the middle of the driveway in her dirt-stained bathrobe, weeping hysterically into the empty night air, her hands clutching at the dark fog as our taillights disappeared around the curve of the cypress trees. The drive back to the city was completely silent. No music. No words. No tears. Harper tried to speak once, about 30 miles down the highway. "Mike, where am I going to stay tonight?" Mike looked at the road ahead in the rearview mirror. "There's a 24-hour diner next to your sister's apartment complex in Northwood. I'm dropping you off there. You can call her to come get you." "Mike, all my clothes are at our place. I will put your belongings in black trash bags and leave them on the porch by tomorrow evening," Mike said. "If you come near the house before then, I will call the police and file for a temporary restraining order based on domestic harassment. You're throwing away 5 years over this." Harper screamed, her voice cracking with pure desperation. "You threw away 5 years when you helped another man fuck our friend's wife," Mike said. That was the last sentence spoken in the car for the remaining 50 miles. At 4:30 a.m., Mike dropped Harper off at the empty parking lot of a neon-lit diner on the outskirts of the city. She stood on the curb with no purse, no money, and only her phone, crying into the damp morning air as Mike drove away without tapping the brakes once. At 5:15 a.m., Mike pulled up outside my home. It was a 2-story mid-century modern house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. I had spent 2 years renovating it. Every piece of furniture, every piece of art, every light fixture had been chosen with care. I looked at the darkened windows. For years, I had thought of this place as a sanctuary. Now it looked like a mausoleum. "Do you want me to come inside with you?" Mike asked. His voice was drained of all energy, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. "No," I said. "Go home, Mike. Get some sleep. Call a lawyer at 8 a.m. Mike nodded slowly. He extended his right hand. His knuckles were swollen and blue. I took his hand and gripped it firmly. "I'm sorry, Adam," Mike said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." "None of this was your fault," I said. "We both trusted people who didn't possess the capacity for loyalty. That's not a flaw in us, Mike. It's a rot in them." I got out of the SUV and walked up the stone pathway to my front door. Inside, the house smelled of Chloe's lingering perfume and the faint scent of cedarwood from the fireplace. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked directly into the master bedroom. I grabbed 2 large, heavy-duty suitcases from the top shelf of the closet and threw them onto the unmade bed. Methodically, cleanly, and without an ounce of sentimentality, I began clearing out her existence. Her designer dresses, ripped from the wooden hangers and folded roughly into the bags. Her jewelry box, placed on top of the clothes. Her high-end cosmetics from the master bathroom, swept from the marble countertop into a cardboard box with one swipe of my arm. By 6:45 a.m., 3 suitcases and 2 boxes sat neatly by the front door. I went into my home office, unlocked the fireproof safe, and pulled out our original marriage certificate, the property deeds, and the vehicle titles. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted a concise, devastating email to my corporate attorney, attaching the dashcam footage, the hotel location logs, and the financial records showing the canceled accounts. Subject: urgent, dissolution of marriage proceedings, expedited filing. Attachment: evidence_bundle_Chloe_Vance. Zip. Message: Marcus. Chloe was caught in flagrante delicto tonight at the Aegean Resort with Julian Vance. Asset division parameters are strictly defined by the 2018 trust agreement. File the initial petition at 9 a.m. sharp. Seeking emergency ex parte order for exclusive possession of the marital residence based on abandonment and waste of marital assets. No settlement talks. No mediation. I hit send. At 7:15 a.m., the low rumble of an engine sounded in the driveway outside. I looked through the front window blinds. The white BMW pulled in slowly. The front bumper was scratched. Chloe had clearly scraped it against a curb in her frantic drive back from the coast. The driver's door opened. Chloe stepped out. She was still wearing the white sundress from yesterday, but it was crumpled, stained, and filthy at the hem. Her face was swollen from hours of crying, her hair a bird's nest of tangled knots. She looked 10 years older than the radiant woman who had blown me a kiss from the car window 24 hours ago. She walked up the steps, pulled out her house key, and tried to insert it into the lock. It didn't turn. I had rekeyed the deadbolt using the electronic keypad code system at 6 a.m. Chloe froze. She rattled the handle frantically. "Adam," she cried out, banging her open palms against the heavy oak wood. "Adam, please. Open the door. Let me in. We need to talk." I walked over to the entryway, unlocked the door, and opened it 6 inches, keeping the security chain engaged. Chloe saw me through the gap. A desperate, pleading gasp tore from her throat. "Adam, baby, thank God," she wept, pressing her face against the gap in the door. Julian left me there. He took off in his car and left me alone at the resort. I had to beg the front desk to give me enough cash for gas to drive home. I have nowhere else to go. Please let me come inside. I looked at her through the narrow opening. "Your bags are on the porch," I said. I released the chain, pushed the door open, grabbed the 3 suitcases and 2 boxes and set them outside on the concrete landing. Chloe stared at the luggage as if they were unexploded bombs. "No. Adam, no, don't do this," she screamed, dropping to her knees and grabbing my ankles through the doorway. "I love you. I made the biggest mistake of my life, but I love you. I swear to you on my mother's life, I will never look at another man again. I will delete all my social media. I will stay home. I will do whatever you want." "You don't love me, Chloe," I said, my voice quiet, cutting through her hysterical screams like a scalpel. "You love the house. You love the cars. You loved the vacations and the safety of having an honest man pay for your lifestyle while you gave yourself away to anyone who made you feel like an Instagram model." "That's not true. That's not true." "The dashcam audio was very clear," I said. "He believes anything I tell him. He's too boring to imagine anyone having an actual life." Chloe's jaw dropped. The memory of her own words, spoken in the sunlit cabin of the BMW 18 hours ago, hit her with the physical force of a hammer. She stopped screaming. Her hands slowly slipped away from my ankles. "You have 30 minutes to load those bags into the BMW and leave this neighborhood," I said. "At 8 a.m., my security team arrives to change the electronic perimeter codes. At 9 a.m., you will be served with divorce papers. At your mother's house." "Adam, what am I supposed to drive? You own the BMW." She whispered, her voice hollow, completely broken. "The title is registered to my holding company," I replied. "I am giving you 7 days of operational use, so you can find alternative transportation. On the 8th day, the vehicle's GPS will report its location to a repossession contractor. If it is not parked in your mother's driveway with the keys in the glove box, I will report it stolen." "Adam, please. I have no money." "You have $342 in the joint account," I said. "That should cover a few nights at a budget motel. If you need more, you can ask Julian Vance. Assuming, of course, he has anything left after my lawyers finish dismantling his partnership on Monday morning." I took a step back inside the house. "Adam," she wailed, lunging forward one last time. I closed the heavy oak door. Click. The deadbolt engaged with a heavy, final mechanical snap. Outside, the muffled sounds of Chloe's sobbing continued for 20 minutes, ragged, desperate, and alone on the concrete steps. Then, finally, came the sound of luggage wheels rolling across the stone pathway. The trunk of the BMW slammed shut. The engine started with a rough, stuttering cough. The tires rolled down the driveway, turned into the street, and faded away into the morning traffic. 6 months later, the high-rise conference room on the 42nd floor of the downtown financial center smelled of polished mahogany, fresh coffee, and expensive legal paper. I sat at the head of the glass table, wearing a tailored charcoal suit, my hands resting calmly beside a 300-page binder of finalized settlement documentation. Across the table sat Chloe and her court-appointed legal aid attorney. Chloe looked unrecognizable. She wore an ill-fitting navy blazer she had bought off the rack. Her hair was pulled back into a severe, unstyled ponytail. She wore no makeup. The hollow circles beneath her eyes were dark and permanent. She had spent the last 6 months living in the cramped guest bedroom of her mother's suburban bungalow, working as a retail associate at a home goods store after her interior design clients fled following the public fallout of the Vance scandal. Julian Vance had been terminated by his firm within 72 hours of our confrontation at the Aegean Resort. The board of directors, terrified of the litigation my venture group threatened, conducted a forensic audit of his accounts, uncovering over $400,000 in commingled corporate expenditures, fabricated client entertainment vouchers, and kickbacks. Julian was currently facing 2 felony counts of wire fraud and had been forced to sell his luxury condo and his Portia to cover his legal retainers. Harper had moved 2 states away to live with an aunt after Mike finalized their divorce in record time. Mike had taken the vice presidency Julian vacated, rebuilt his life with a quiet, stoic dignity, and had recently purchased a home by the lake where we fished together every other weekend. The mediator cleared his throat, sliding the final signature packet across the glass table toward Chloe. Under the terms of the mediated agreement, the mediator stated, his voice rhythmic and dry, the petitioner, Adam Vance Mercer, retains all real property, corporate assets, intellectual property, and investment portfolios held under the Vance Freeport Trust. The respondent, Chloe Mercer, waives all claims to spousal maintenance, equity distribution, and legal fee reimbursement. The mediator placed a black Montblanc pen in front of Chloe. Respondent, please sign on page 27 and page 34. Chloe's hand trembled so severely she could barely grip the pen. She looked up from the paper, her eyes searching mine across the vast expanse of the table. There was no anger left in her eyes, only an immense, bottomless well of regret. Adam, she whispered, her voice cracking. Do you ever think about who we were before all of this? I looked at her calmly. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel vindictive satisfaction. I felt the absolute, unshakable peace of a man who had walked through a burning building, let the ash settle, and stepped out into clean, open air. No, Chloe, I said gently, because that person was a fiction you wrote, and I was just the man who bought the book. Chloe let out a small, trembling breath that caught in her chest. A single tear slipped down her cheek, landing with a soft pat on the legal document in front of her. She lowered the pen to the paper. Chloe Mercer. She turned the page. Chloe Mercer. She put the pen down on the glass. It rolled 2 inches and stopped. The mediator gathered the papers, stamped them with the official seal of the Superior Court, and stood up. The marriage is dissolved, the mediator said. Gentlemen, Ms. Mercer, we are concluded. I stood up, buttoned my suit jacket, and shook my attorney's hand. I didn't look back at Chloe as she sat alone at the end of the long conference table, her head bowed, staring at the empty glass surface. I walked out of the conference room, took the private elevator down to the ground floor, and stepped through the revolving glass doors into the bright midday sun. The city was alive with noise, energy, and motion. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and fresh ocean breeze. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my car keys, and clicked the unlock button on the brand new dark blue sedan parked along the curb. The lights flashed once in acknowledgement. I opened the driver's door, got inside, and settled into the leather seat. I looked over at the empty passenger seat. It was positioned perfectly upright, aligned with the dashboard, clean, untouched, and ready for whatever road lay ahead. I started the engine, shifted into drive, and merged seamlessly into the flow of the open city streets, without looking in the rearview mirror even once.